one of the stories that gets told about that Ivy Vann is, well, that Ivy Vann only cares about zoning because she's going to make $1 million. So let's unpack that a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
I'm sure you've heard that. Yes.
No, I mean it's definitely something that's gone around town.
Oh it goes around on the regular. So here, let's tell that story.
Sure.
Let's unpack that story. So what happened was my husband and I and our 4 kids were living in Temple, and I was miserable in Temple because I had to drive everywhere. My kids were going to school in Dublin. I drove to Peterborough 4 times a day. One morning, I was teaching nursery school at the time. One morning, the phone rang, and Richard Pendleton, who's a wetland scientist, and I've forgotten exactly. But anyway, he's out in the field a lot. So Richard called about rain boots for his daughter, I think. And while I had him on the phone, I said, Richard, you don't know of a parcel of land in Peterborough that's for sale, do you? Because we'd really like to build a house in Peterborough. And he said, you wouldn't want to live on High Street, would you? And I said, oh, no, Richard, I would never want to live on High Street. And he said, oh, really? People like it. I said, I like it, too. What do you mean you have, why are you asking me this? He said, well, I have a parcel on High Street. I'd sell it to you. Mm-hmm. So we went and looked at it, and we talked about the possibility. It's a big parcel. It's 24 acres. And in early January of that year, Swift Corwin, who was, I think, then maybe the chairman of the Conservation Commission and is a dear friend, Swift and I went and walked the land to talk about it. And while we're walking, Swift says to me, Ivy, you ought to build a neighborhood back here. And I said, what do you mean I ought to build a neighborhood back here? He said, well, this is where the houses ought to go. It's right in town. And he said, and your model is Pine Street on Halloween. And I thought, he's right. And I thought about all the talking and thinking I've done about development patterns and how we need to build neighborhoods, and we need to build neighborhoods that are in town. And I'm like, okay, honey, here's your chance to put your money where your mouth is.
Sure, okay.
So I came at being a developer from a position of I was really interested in the built environment. I wasn't really interested in developing. I was interested in doing a model project. Okay. So I went home and told my husband what Swift had said. I said, Swift says we should build a neighborhood. And he said, I have a full-time job and I just don't see that happening. So we left it at that.
Sure.
And the next evening, Hugh came home, sat down at the end of the table, looked at me and said, so about that neighborhood, I was thinking if there was someone who has a passionate interest in the built environment and a not too demanding day job, that could be her project.
Right, okay.
And that's how I became a developer.
Okay.
So we bought the land. I went to Seaside, Florida to the how to build a new traditional neighborhood, a 4-day workshop, met all the new urbanists, discovered my tribe, found all the people who spoke the same language I did.
Right.
And that's how we got started. We poured a bunch of money into doing a really, really good design. And we got hung up in the regulatory process, discovered that even though the master plan of Peterborough says that this is exactly what it wants, the zoning didn't follow it.
Sure. And
Carol Ogilvie in the Office of Community Development was incredibly helpful. And we talked a lot about, what was wrong, how could we make the code work? And the answer is, it's pretty hard to. So the bottom fell out of the market. We never built anything, but the planning board asked me to come and serve on the planning board because I clearly had done a lot of thinking about how to make zoning code that would allow the kind of development that Peterborough had said it wanted.
Right, because it was specific to Peterborough as well, because that was the town you had originally been planning to do it in any case.
Well, the code, I'm interested in code for other places.
Right, of course.
Right, and the other thing is that I went on and went to classes and seminars and got certified, in the intervening time between when we bought that acreage and May 2018, the great zoning debacle of 2018.
Right.
I got certified by the Congress for the New Urbanism as an urban planner, an urban designer. I went to the Form-Based Code Institute and learned to write form-based code. I went to the National Charrette Institute and learned how to run a charrette, how to do public engagement in an effective way.
Sure.
So essentially, I turned myself into a town planner and urban designer because it was a thing I had always been interested in.
Sure. So that's your motivation for doing this kind of thing, because I think that's probably one of the first things that anybody who's opposing this is talking about, is they're trying to question your motivation here. So
absolutely,
that's really what we need to speak to on this. And I mean, anybody watching this can obviously make their decision whether or not they feel like you're telling the truth right there.